आपादमौलिपर्यन्तां गुरूणाम् आकृतिं स्मरेतेन विघ्नप्रणश्यन्ति सिद्धन्ति च मनोरथाः लक्ष्मीतनोतुनितरामितरानपेक्षमङ्गद्वयं नमशाकिशिखाप्रवालं हैरम्बमम्बुरुहडम्बरचौर्यनिक्रं विघ्नातिवीर्यशतधारतुरन्तरः सर्वेषां स्वागतम्. So, welcome to the positive psychology session for the 27th shloka. So, in the Samskara session, we saw these three different concepts, that is Jahati Lakshana, and then Bhagatyaga Lakshana. This Bhagatyaga Lakshana actually contributes a lot to keeping up the positive energies. So, how that is, we will go through in this positive psychology session. So, the first concept of well-being. Well-being is the overall nature of the mind. It is with respect to keeping up your morale. So your base style of well-being is how good are you, how bad are you, etc., etc. It can mean both, but we are taking a only positive this thing. It's a multifaceted concept. So where it is characterized by a state of mind, a state of being, where there is positivity, where there is satisfaction, where we are flourishing, and where there is good physical health, mental health, which can bring about resilience. There can be good social exposure, that is relations, ability to cultivate relations, and then obviously finding meaning. These are all a part of the state of well-being. So one can say that the different levels of these components can lead to different levels of well-being. Now, what do we mean by Bhagatyaga Lakshana? We've seen in the previous this thing that Bhagatyaga Lakshana is a particular method of deduction where some parts are included, some are excluded with respect to what our main goal is. Now, what do we mean by well-being through Bhagatyaga Lakshana? Well-being, obviously, as we said, is a state of mind. It's a state of being. To achieve a certain higher level of well-being, we need to process the stimulus, emotional stimulus, through Bhagatyaga Lakshana. That means it has to be understood, it has to be processed through certain principles of exclusion, partial inclusion, so that we are able to achieve a higher level of well-being. For example, we can get two kinds of news, something bad, something good. When we get something good, when we tend to we tend to process it with a lot of energy. That means immediately we try to we get excited and then we celebrate it. Now, what happens is that exposure of that kind of energy immediately brings about a downfall in the well-being. We have seen the base level of well-being when we did the previous sessions. We've seen how immediate exposure to something very positive stimulus, it it raises our base level of well-being, then it falls because the base level of well-being has not been lifted ultimately. It has not changed ultimately. It has not bring about a shift. It has only moved upwards. And obviously, when that stimulus is gone, it lacks, it falls. So what happens? I have something positive. It doesn't mean I shouldn't celebrate. It's just that there is some positive stimulus, something there is that is inducing a positivity in me. When I start to express it too much, when I start to bring about too much exposure to it, what happens is, one, I will obviously build expectations accordingly, and the next stimulus might not be as great as the previous one. Therefore, we obviously fall down. Even when that does not happen, what happens is immediately after reaching a higher plane, because there is no continuation, it's like force. It's like force. An object continues to be in a certain direction unless and until it is acted upon by an opposite force. right? So we have been going in a certain base level of well-being, which means the forces up and down are equal. Now what happens? There is an upward force due to stimulus, therefore it goes upwards. Obviously, that upward force, it reduces after some time, so the downward will start to balance it. So our this thing comes down. But unfortunately, what happens is, because of that balance, I will not immediately reach my base level. That is, let us say I'm happy by 100%. Now, because of that positive stimulus, I've reached the happiness level of 120%. Immediately, because of the reduction in the positive stimulus and then the downward force, what happens is my happiness reduces. It doesn't immediately reduce only to 100. 100 was my base level. It starts to go below that. It starts to go below that. Again, it will come back, because the point is that in the long term, we always have a base level. So therefore, we will maintain the long term stability of 100. But what happens? We will start to come down. This we have noticed when something good ends. When something good ends, like for example, school ended, last day of school, start to reminisce everything, or binge watching. Suddenly, we have gone through a complete set of our favorite series, and the last episode is there, and we whether it was good or bad, the point is that it is about to end. It brings about a fall in our base level of well-being. Okay, so this way what happens is, when it, even with the positive stimulus also, we have this problem, and negative, obviously it goes down immediately. And the problem with respect to negative stimulus is that we tend to get attached to it a little more strongly than the uh, positive stimulus. So in this way, we get attached further to um, negative stimulus than positive stimulus. The reason is simply being that we want to control the effects. We keep thinking in our mind, oh, had this not happened, it would have been great. So we are dwelling on that particular thought. Because we are dwelling on that particular thought, we are actually giving more strength to the downward force. So therefore, upward force might take around 5 seconds to go up and come down. So my base level of well-being is actually increasing and coming down. But a downward force take a longer time for us to get back to the same level of well-being. So because of this, how do we process positive and negative um, emotions, stimulus? So in Bhagatyaga Lakshanam, the one thing that we need to understand is, we need to process or include any of the stimulus without getting attached to it. Inclusion is necessary for decision making. We have to include it, so because the consequences will be there. But we have to do it through non-attachment. This is one thing. Second one is through acceptance. That is, whatever has happened has happened. The non this helps particularly with respect to negative emotions. Specifically, acceptance is a very big force in converting negative emotions to positive emotions. I've said it in previous sessions also. So big one positive attribute of acceptance is that the downfall that occurs in the base well-being due to a negative stimulus can be controlled when there is acceptance involved. Once I accept it, my base level of well-being can be protected. That is one thing. Then we have surrender. Surrender is sharanagati. Understanding that I cannot control it is acceptance. Making the best of what I cannot control also is sharanagati, to give in to that particular thing. So there, surrendering the attachment, surrendering the attachment. At non-attachment, we cannot cultivate immediately. We have to give up attachment. So giving up attachments, like for example, I cannot control some negative news that is going to come by, it keeps coming. So how do I make the best of that particular situation, I need to cultivate Sharanagati. I am going to give in to whatever is going to culminate. That means whatever is the ultimate happening that is going to be, that will take place because I have accepted it. I don't have control over it. But then how do I stay um, unaffected by it? I cultivate non-attachment. I cultivate uh, giving up attachment. So this is surrender. So these core principles help us to bring about well-being through Bhagatyaga Lakshana. What is inclusive? What is exclusive in this? Inclusive is the reality, the facts that cannot be given up. If if I'm losing my job, I'm losing my job. How can I give up that particular fact? So inclusive, what should be included? The practical facts, the reality that cannot be given up. What should be given up then? What should be excluded? The attachment that we have to those uh, consequences, the control that we feel that we have to trying to control the consequences, and expectations must be excluded. It must be given up. So well-being through Bhagatyaga Lakshana. There is partial inclusion, partial exclusion. So using this, it can be helpful for us to bring about or retaining the current state of well-being, not being affected by negative or positive also. Like I said, immediate downfall it brings about. So this uh, helps us to bring about a good level of resilience. One of the biggest things that we have against any kind of adversities is resilience. So this will help us. This will help us cushion that blow. So there is a very strong when I use Bhagatyaga Lakshana to bring about to protect my base level of well-being. Then obviously I have a very good cushion to any kind of adversity. So my resilience is extremely strong. Then it helps about mindfulness. That means making best of the situation. So with that, the practical applications are through letting go of expectations, focusing more on the process, how to get most out of a particular process. So what has happened has happened. So there is acceptance over there. But how do I make most of it? Like that. So in that way, Bhagatyaga Lakshana actually helps us to develop. Uh, First, it helps us to protect our base level of well-being. Then it also helps us to bring about non-attachment, acceptance, and then improves resilience, may adaptability also because we are giving in, make the most of the situation, and then uh, with that, when we go, we'll be able to shift our well-being rather than go with the flow. Rather than go with the flow as like this, instead of that, we'll be able to shift our base level of well-being. That is the well-being through Bhagatyaga Lakshana concept. Not exactly a concept, but Bhagatyaga Lakshana is a concept using that well-being is being protected, restored, and conserved. So this is the positive psychology session for the 27th shloka. With this, we conclude the session. स्वस्ति प्रजाभ्यः प्रतिपालयन्तां न्यायेन मार्गेण मही महिषा गोब्राह्मणेभ्यो शुभमस्तु नित्यं लोकाः समस्ताः सुखिनो भवन्तु कायेन वाचा मनसेन्द्रियैर्वा बुद्ध्यात्मना वा प्रकृते स्वभावात् करोमि यद्यत् सकलं परस्मै नारायणायेति समर्पयामि।